Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the Council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Are there any apologies or leaves of absence? None. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? None. We will now move to open forum. We have 3 sets of questions, and with each set, I will just confirm that the person who's asked the question is present in the gallery. I will start with Elizabeth Kingdon, and you are present. So the question is, in light of the continued desire by local communities within the Indigo Shire for an indoor heated pool at Beechworth, will the Indigo Shire Council be undertaking the construction of said indoor heated pool as per the recommendation of the report Beechworth Swimming Pool Feasibility Study commissioned by the Indigo Shire Council and released October 2021? CEO.
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mayor Price, Council has already received and considered that feasibility study. The study itself didn't propose or recommend any particular option, but it submitted a series of options. Council considered those and passed the resolution at the December 21 meeting, basically that it receives the study itself. It acknowledged that on the basis of the significant cost and investment involved, notwithstanding there was strong support for that indoor heated pool at the time, which is acknowledged in the resolution. So acknowledging, notwithstanding strong support for a new facility by the Beechworth community, any proposal to replace the existing pool is currently not feasible. It goes on to, this is the resolution, that prioritises advocacy to the state and federal governments to address the issue of replacement of upgrades of aquatic facilities and establishment of enhanced funding programs which can reduce the cost to small shires when faced with aquatic facility replacements or upgrades. For that, Council seeks funding from the state and federal government and any other agency to support option 2, stage 1 of the feasibility study. Now, option 2, stage 1 was an option which looked at replacing like for like, and stage 1 being replacing the pool like for like. Stage 2 down the track was looking at a heated facility, heated indoor facility. So at the time, the Council just decided we would go for option 2, stage 1, which was replace like for like, about $10 million, and go and advocate, try and get some money for that. So that was part of the resolution. And the last part of that resolution was that the Council allocates funding in the 22-23 budget to replace the pool liner. And Council did do that. That money was carried over to 23-24, and that's in this year's budget. And the pool liner is currently out for tender and should be installed before the new season starts. So basically, it's a general comment. Pools are extremely expensive. Heated indoor pools are even more expensive, and it's extremely difficult for small shires to afford to replace their pools. And the reality is that the grant programs that are out there rarely provide grant programs for pools. The best we can access is the state government, which provides up to $2 million for recreation facilities. So 2 out of 10 is a really poor contribution. So for us to find the balance is quite cost prohibitive. This call for advocacy, we have been doing that loud and proud, strongly over the years, and the Mayor and myself have both done that quite regularly, including last week with Helen Haynes once again. So we're always advocating for the $10 million as best we can. So yeah, Council's considered, and that's a decision they took back in December 2021, and we're honouring that decision.
Thank you for your question. The next set of questions is from Robin McLeish, and I confirm that I can see Robin in the gallery. In 2009, Council acknowledged responsibility for rehabilitation of the 4 closed garbage tips in the Shire and began collecting cash from ratepayers to carry out the work. This entailed capping the sites to prevent the escape of methane generated by the decomposing garbage. Over 10 years have now passed and Council has done none of the work required, but have collected around $7.5 million from ratepayers. When will Council commence the rehabilitation work on the closed tips to eliminate the environmental damage caused by the escape of methane? Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thanks, Robert, for the question. Look, Council will continue to conduct environmental monitoring at each of the closed landfill sites and continue to work with the EPA around the risks associated with those sites. I don't have a commencement date to report at the moment as there are no rehabilitation works currently planned.
The second question, Tourism Northeast has allocated responsibility to Indigo Shire Council to formulate a master plan for the Beechworth Goods Shed precinct, including art, landscaping and detailed designs of the rail shed and connection to the existing Heritage Railway Station. Will Tourism Northeast and Indigo Shire Council provide ratepayers with details of their intentions for this project and any grant applications, or will it be kept secret as have previous T&E projects? The Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Information about this project for the community will be commencing in the next few weeks, and that information will include that Tourism Northeast have secured $8.5 million for the Murray to Mountains Rail Trail Enhancement project. This funding is to deliver enhancement projects across 3 LGAs in this region through which the rail trail runs. Council has put forward the Beechworth Railway Precinct as an enhancement project, recognising the community's interest in appropriate activation of the site and the goods shed. The enhancement grant funding will enable the development of a master plan for the precinct. It will deliver landscaping of the public park and recreation areas, including integrated artworks. In addition, it will fund detailed architectural designs for the build to bring the goods shed up to code. So that information will be provided in more detail in the coming weeks. Thank you.
And the third and final question from Robin McLeish. Tourism Northeast is seeking approval for an $11.5 million grant application for the Rutherglen Silo Art Project. The business case for the project identifies repairs and maintenance costs of $2.4 million over the life of the project. Repeated requests for access to the grant application details to ascertain responsibility for these costs have been denied by Tourism Northeast and Indigo Shire Council. Will the Indigo Shire ratepayers be required to provide the $2.4 million for the repairs and maintenance for this project? CEO.
Robin, thank you for the question, Robin, and through you, Mayor Price. Between the time of receiving this question and now, which was just a short period of time, I wasn't able to confirm the $2.4 million amount, but just as a general response, yes, Council is always required to repair and maintain all of its assets, noting that any grant application we have always applies to the capital cost of a project, and we never get funding for ongoing operating costs. That goes back to Council to operate. But I will note that Council has some approaching $500 million in assets, and we do provide sufficient budget to maintain all of those assets, and this would go into our asset pool and they'll be maintained along with every other asset that the Shire controls.
Our third set of questions are from Charles Mitchell, and I can confirm that Charles is in the audience. The annual Victorian Government Community Satisfaction Survey has shown an overall downward trend for 5 years, and this report is due for release in June-July this year, with early survey result provided to management. Unfortunately, many Victorian councils defer releasing poor results to age and dilute transparency for several months. When will Council release to the public the survey they contributed to and paid for? CEO.
So thank you, Charles, for the question. Through you, Mayor Price. I don't have a timeline for that yet. The survey hasn't been released, but we generally have a process of, first of all, we receive the surveys and we analyse those ourselves, but we also book a meeting in with the provider of the survey, the consultant provides the survey, and that's very useful for us to understand the results, because we can look at our own results, but also we get intel on the statewide trends. So that takes a little while to book and receive a meeting with the provider, because they're obviously very busy at that time. We also then seek to brief councillors on that information. So we'll go through that process like we normally do. And then as soon as we get through that, then we put it out on the website, and we did it as fast as we can. But again, we don't have the results as yet, so I don't know when we'll be able to put that on the website.
The second question. In August 2023, the Community Satisfaction Survey results for Indigo Shire Council were released and questioned at the council meeting. All indicators except the contracted garbage services have fallen since 2018. In December 2023, Mayor Price identified that Indigo Shire strived for the highest level of accountability. Who is accountable for the decline in performance, councillors or the CEO? CEO?
Thank you, Charles, for the question again. Through you, Mayor Price. I guess a philosophical question, this one, but certainly myself as CEO, I have a performance-based contract. I have annual performance reviews, and one of those indicators talks about the community satisfaction survey results. So I have those discussions with councillors on a range of indicators, and we do that in private. And so they hold me to account through that process. As to who hold councillors to account, I guess that's for the public to decide how they do that, and probably not one for me to answer.
And the third and final question. In 2024-25, Council's budget identifies the continuation of the TIP rehabilitation special charge called the Environmental Management Contribution, which is proposed at $88.15 per ratepayer. This EMC special charge goes to general rate revenue, as does the Victorian rate cap of 2.75%. The result of the total general revenue results in an average of 7.53%. Can Council please explain why ratepayers will be required to pay over 2.5 times more general revenue to Council? The Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Thanks for the question. Either I don't understand the question or there's some calculation errors. The proposition that there's been an increase of over 7.5% is just not true. Fortunately, though, the budget does answer the question that is underlying this. So on the bottom of page 31 of the draft budget, it sets out rates, the municipal charge, garbage recycling, and the environmental contribution. So these are all of the amounts that the community pays. And the total increase from the current financial year to the proposed next financial year is 2.70%. So that answers the question of how much, the ratepayers' contribution will go up. So it's at 2.7%. The only other thing I'll add to that is that the Essential Service Commission is charged with monitoring. We have to report to them each year, and they do the calculations, and they report to all of the community through a public report each year on Council's compliance with the rate cap. So that's another layer of confidence that the ratepayers can have that Council will adhere to the rate cap.
That brings us to the end of our open forum. So thank you to the people that submitted questions. You're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but if that was the only portion that you were intending on staying for, you're more than welcome to leave at any time. We'll now move to community and council achievements. And Councillor Gold, you wanted to note a community achievement and a council achievement.
Thank you very much. First up was the LG Pro Awards, and people might recall a wonderful person that worked for Council and left us a few months ago to continue her studies, Ella Cheeseman, who was had high commendation in the Young Achievers Award and epic in the Outstanding Small Rural Council Initiative. So I think another piece of kudos to the work that Ella did and the team around her that supported her in her journey with council. Also, I think there would be no one that doesn't know that Beechworth was a successful winner of the National Tidy Towns of the Year 2024 Sustainable Communities Award. I think many of us have been thrilled by that, and kudos to Iris and Anne and the team that rally around the troops to get the applications in, and also recognising some of the individual category winners. So Indigo Youth Advisory Group, the Beechworth Honey Bee School and the Burke Museum, all of whom do fantastic work and are showcased regularly throughout our community. So congratulations to all.
Thank you for raising those, Councillor Gold, and I think we'd all join you in congratulating the Beechworth Tidy Towns and also to Ella and the success that we've had at LG Pro. Councillor Croucher, you also wanted to recognise someone at this point?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Beechworth resident Gwen Gray, who has recently resigned from the Indigo Shire Community Grants and Awards Committee. Gwen joined this committee in 2012 and has not only served her community and the Indigo Shire by attending the various meetings we have throughout the year, but has gone above and beyond her duty as a committee member by visiting schools and different service groups, always willing to assist whenever needed. Indigo Shire recognises the value and the importance of the role of community groups in building vibrant, inclusive and healthy communities, and Gwen certainly fits the bill here. On behalf of the Shire, I would like to thank Gwen for her contribution, and in doing so, wish her and her family all the best for the future. Now, if I may, Mayor, I'd just like to also mention an event that was held at Tangambalinga. Well, it was actually held at the Huon Reserve. It was called the Milk Run. It was a very successful event. We had over 300 competitors there. They came from all parts of the Shire in the northeast. This is a Lions Club initiative, and funds taken on the day were allocated to childhood cancer, but another great event held in Indigo Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. If there are no more community and council achievements to raise at the meeting, I'll move now to condolences. Do we have any condolences for tonight's meeting? None. Okay, we'll now move to item 8, which is confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of April 2024, as published on council's website, be confirmed. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to say anything? Councillor Tyson, nothing? Nobody else would like to say anything? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from previous minutes, and I'll read the notes. At the 26th of March 2024 council meeting, council resolved that the privacy policy for 2024, item 14.2, be placed on public exhibition for 30 days, ending on the 26th of April 2024. And if no submissions were received, that the policy be automatically adopted on the 27th of April 2024. The policy received no submissions, therefore it is adopted as per the council resolution. Item 10 is petitions, and there are none. Item 11 is planning and corporate services, and item 11.1 is the 2024-25 draft budget. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes that A, that the draft 2024-25 budget proposes a rate increase within the 2.75 cap. B, the draft budget proposes a total of 18.657 million of capital works, made up of $7.067 million of new works for 2024-25 and $11.590 million of carry forward capital works. C, that council will work with the Essential Services Commission to transition the environmental management levy income to general rates, and that it is anticipated that this will be achieved for the 2025-26 financial year. 2, endorses the attached documents for public exhibition. A, the 2024-25 draft budget. B, the 2024-25 draft 10-year financial plan, C, the 2024-25 draft revenue and rating plan, and D, the 2024-25 draft operating income and expense by service. 3, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of the preparation of the draft budget. 4, places the endorsed documents on public exhibition for a period of 21 days from Wednesday the 15th of May 2023 to close of business Tuesday the 4th of June 2024. 5, invites any person wishing to provide feedback on the exhibited documents to do so prior to 5 p.m. on the 4th of June 2024. And 6, considers a recommendation to adopt the 2024-25 budget at the June ordinary meeting of Council on the 25th of June 2024. Could I have somebody to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Gold, seconded by Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I think being new to the councillor role, I knew the budget was critical. I knew it was big. I had no idea how much work went into it. So I would like to thank the Greg and the various council officers who took us through a workshop, full-day workshop with a massive folder of documents to understand both the process and the content. And while I don't recommend the community necessarily put that much effort into it, I would like to encourage the community to read the document and understand the parts that excite them, because I think there is something in it for everyone. It has been really thorough. There is great consideration to the role of council and the demands of community, and how through the budget, council can best address the regional needs and individual community needs and the aspirations of the community of what it is that Indigo Shire offers as a place to live and work. So I'd like to, I guess from my own perspective, recognise the amount of effort that goes into the budget preparation, into balancing conflicting demands, working within the money that we do have and what we might potentially achieve as future grants, and also to recognise that not everyone's wish will be addressed or will be addressed in this budget. That's not to say that there's not a bit of a lead-in of ideas that are being explored and will come to fruition in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'd like to commend council staff on doing the job on the budget. They've had to balance between the cost of living and providing services across communities. They've done a very good job with this in the budget under significant constraints. One of the things that I would like to talk to is the fact that our communities are ageing. I noticed that we have put more money into our ageing well communities, but this will be an ongoing concern as our populations do grow. I'd also like to note the increased spend in drainage following the floods of a couple of years ago, and the efforts that council staff have gone through to try and mitigate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Horn.
I actually have two questions, please. The first one is to Mr. Ian. Sorry, I forgot your surname. Ellis, sorry, our Director of Infrastructure Services. The Shire is accountable to the government to maintain the level of our own sourced expenditure on roads. Can you give us a brief outline of how this amount is assessed? And also the little question as to if it isn't prudent to include a contingency amount.
Thanks, councillor, for your question. I suppose the simplest way to try and respond to that, council spends a lot of money on its roads annually through maintenance and operations and capital works. So they're funded by a range of sources, but we obviously have what we spend of ratepayers' money, and then there's various grants that top up. So Roads to Recovery is a federal recurrent grant worth around $1 million a year to us. Over the last few years, we've had local roads and community infrastructure funding as stimulus money to be spent across roads and other infrastructure. We'll get different grants for road bridges repairs. and to be other things from time to time. So the accountability to maintain our own source expenditure is one that we have with the federal government as a condition of receiving annually the roads to recovery money. And I suppose in simple terms, if we look at everything we spend on roads and we look at how much of that is grant funded through any of those various sources, the remainder of that expenditure has to come from council and ratepayers' funds. So we have to assess annually that we're maintaining that level of expenditure that we're putting forward, just as a way to qualify and continue to qualify to be able to receive that federal funding. Hopefully that answers the question. The other part of it was whether we need a contingency amount. Look, it's a difficult question right across our services. You know, it'd be nice sitting here at the start of the year to know what the year was going to bring and to have some contingency. But, you know, I think we just need to rely right across our services that if one area, you know, costs a little bit more, we'll look for savings and report to council as we go. But we just can't in an annual budget put contingency aside for every service area. So we'll do the best we can with the budget, and if the circumstances are that that's not enough, then we talk to council and you know, we might make adjustments as we go, or we report variances on a monthly basis. Thank you.
Thank you. My other question is to Greg Pinkerton, our Director of Corporate Services. When you average out the carried forward capital works over the last 3 years of this term, just over 50% of our projects have not been completed on time or subsequently on budget. Can you please tell us what steps have been taken to curb this trend rather?
Yeah, thank you for the question through you, Madam Mayor. This is a fairly standard occurrence in councils. Councils do long-term projects and fairly big projects, and a lot of them end up being a little bit dependent on weather and other circumstances. So, yeah, every council that I've seen has a carry forward amount. We're always trying to get the delivery for the community as soon as possible. So, you know, this is not something that we like, even though it's a fairly standard thing. And there is an incredible internal view on all of the projects. So the management team meet regularly, monthly at least. And then you would have seen, obviously, through briefings that councillors are involved in that as well. So there's quite a lot of eyes on that. And, you know, we certainly are delivering a huge amount for the community. But yes, there is always a bit of carry forward.
Councillor Horn, did you also want to speak to the budget as well as your two questions you've just asked? Would any other councillor like to speak to the draft budget? Councillor Croucher?
Yeah, I think page 13 in the document sums it up pretty well. The draft budget sets the framework by which officers can implement council strategic directions contained within the council plan. And now this draft budget goes out to the community for general exhibition and to provide feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Times are tough. Small business is doing it really hard. Some tell me the turnover is down 30 to 40%. The state government this year has cut the tourism budget by 75%, which is difficult because tourism in Indigo Shire is really the lifeblood. The council's draft budget will spend over $2 million on tourism. Tourism development will spend $753,000, an increase of $136,000. The visitor experience and the museums in this budget is $1.32 million, an increase of $110,000. I just really think that tourism is what's going to bring us out better, and we're certainly expecting better things this year. But the state government to cut the tourism budget by that extent won't go well for this shire. In this budget to upgrade rural and urban roads, for example, patching, sealing and gravel re-sheeting, we have set aside $2 million in this budget. That's including, as Director Allett said, grant money and ratepayers' money. I urge the community to provide feedback on this draft budget before the 4th of June. Your opinion is important to us.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak?
Yep, the first three attachments are requirements of Victorian government, but since I remember when I first got on council, we always used to get the operating income and expense by service attached as a councillor document, but it didn't go out to the community. And I remember us saying, someone said, well, wouldn't the community like to see this as well? And so we have been adding that voluntarily to enhance transparency and comprehension of the budget details. And I think it makes a huge difference when you're able to look at that document and just see the difficulty of balancing. Like when you look across it, you go, oh, I take money from that. Then you go, well, then where am I going to get that from? Which service are we going to cut for that? So it's a really important document, I think, that we voluntarily, as I said, add to our shire, to our community, so that they can really look at what we're spending our money on, and an opportunity for people to look deeper into it. And appreciate the fact that there were 87 pre-budget submissions, and those submissions come pretty early in the piece, and they go out to all the departments, and the departments are then asked, when they put in their submissions to the budget, that they have taken them into account. So they are very much an important part of the process, those submissions. So appreciate the community putting them in, because it's made a difference, of course, as Councillor Gaffney said, to the spending on infrastructure and the spending on roads and bridges and footpaths.
Councillor Horn, you'd now like to speak to the budget?
I would, thank you. I'd like to comment on the fact that we had a devastating drop in the number of community members who participated in the pre-budget survey, from 311 in the first year to 315 last year, and now only 87. I think we really need to look at why this has happened. I've had people in the community say, I can't be bothered doing it again because they're not listening to me. So I think that's a very sad situation for us to get to, because it's a very innovative move to ask people at the beginning of the process what they actually want. So it's really for the community to be involved and have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. I'd just like to say that in terms of the process, I think it's really important that we reflect back to the community that it has been a really sound process, and we've had everything presented to us that we have required, and anything further we've been able to request from the CEO and his staff. In terms of those 87 submissions that we received, I think that it was really great to get a presentation from the manager of customer experience and engagement to show just how detailed those submissions are, and the consideration that they're given by the organisation, and recognising the different trends that are appearing in those discussions over the last few years. So I would encourage people to continue to submit to those processes, because the staff told us that right at the outset of the budget process, and then constantly we are asking to see that reflected in the budget at each and every stage. So I'm very confident in the process that we've had to date, and would echo what Councillor Gaffney said, that it's over to you, the community, now to give us feedback over the next little while the documents are exhibited. Now I will return to the mover. So Councillor Gold, if you would like to sum up.
Look, thank you so much. I think, again, it is one thing that's become very apparent to me is the credibility that is given to community feedback and the internal process for all of that to be addressed within each department. And whether the feedback is visible in the budget or not, There is a reason why it is there, or it is adapted, or it is set aside, or it is held for the future, for future years, depending on the ask and what is required before items come into the actual budget document we present. I do note that the number of respondents was different this year, but also the process changed. And I think what we've seen is that the process changed, but the information we received was incredibly valuable across all of those 87 respondents. So I would encourage community to read the bits you can, read it all if you're so inclined, ask your questions, provide the feedback, and let us know if there's something that really stands out that you don't want to have lost and something that you feel is missing. That there is a prolonged period through till early June for responses to come in. And I can assure any respondent that their comments will be looked at and taken seriously. So please get on board.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. I'll now put it to the vote for the draft budget for 2024-25. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12 is Community and Economic Development, and item 12.1 is the Get Active Indigo Grants 2024. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council receives the Get Active Indigo Grants 2024 Assessment Panel Recommendation Report and endorses the distribution of funds as recommended by the Assessment Panel as follows. I won't read out all of the grants. There are quite a few of them. They total to $30,000, ranging from a maximum grant of $5,000 down to what looks like $1,000 is the lowest. All projects presented to us from that panel. So could I get somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, this is another great opportunity for community to gain funds for activities with an emphasis on being more active and more often. It's pleasing to see that the funds have been distributed right throughout the Shire and a diverse range of activities have been selected. So well done to the committee for getting those people and well done to the people that are going to receive it.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, as a panelist on this, it was very nice to see the variety of sports and activities that were on offer. Most of the community groups here that were successful are first time at this, and that most of the activities that have been awarded are also new to the area. I would like to note that Beechworth is now going to get pickleball, which is one of the fastest growing sports in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Shepherd?
I remember when we did the consultation around the Active Indigo recreation plan. And, you know, I was only a newer councillor back then. I remember thinking so many plans, do any of them get done? Like we pay for these consultation fees. And this, especially this particular plan, every year that $30,000 going out to the community, it's really obvious to see the type of activities. Of course, we had that little sort of COVID break, but the type of activities that are encouraged within the community. So it's just great to see a plan that's absolutely being endorsed and carried out.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold?
Thank you. I'd again just like to acknowledge the diversity of groups and activities across the Shire and just recognise that a lot of these groups are able to deliver active programs for the community through volunteerism, and volunteers by nature typically work hard, don't get often a lot of thanks. And I think it's very heartening for council to be able to give what is a relatively small amount of money for a number of these groups, but it is enough for the groups to implement something really valuable in their community. So I'm really pleased to see that there's $30,000 in this instance being delivered into community to enable these various groups to deliver some sort of activity that is meaningful for within the communities and a diverse range of activities that's fairly inclusive of all ages and genders and abilities.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to councillor Crouch. Would you like to sum up? Thank you, councillor Croucher. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2 is the fair access policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorses the draft fair access in brackets for women and girls to participate in sport policy for public exhibition for a period of 14 days from the 14th of May to the 28th of May 2024. 2, if no submissions are received during the public exhibition period, the policy is adopted from the 29th of May 2024. And if submissions are received during public exhibition, the policy is to be brought to a future council meeting for adoption. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
So for a very sport-minded community that we are, we're constantly funding infrastructure for sport within the Shire. This directive from the Australian government, from the Victorian government, isn't it? From Victorian government, yes. I mean, I like their way of working. So they're putting this out to us as a policy saying, support this policy and we will then support you with funding and I think it's a great way of doing it. I absolutely support that we do have fair access for all genders to all sports. And this is a great way of us showing our support. And we will adopt this by council, then the policy will align with the fair access policy roadmap. We will set up our own roadmap. So we're going to send out to all of our sporting facilities that we expect them to take this policy on board, and we'll be working with them on how to create a roadmap to give gender equity within those sporting facilities. So this is the beginning, and our Sally and her department will be working with our community to ensure that they are able to endorse and carry out this policy. So yeah, quite an exciting policy and an interesting way of getting us on board gender equity.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, I'd just like to say that it's great to see girls and women taking part in all sorts of sports. We see them in cricket, soccer, AFL, NRL, etc., and all very popular and gaining much airplay and promotions. And I think it's great that also to see our Shire designing and implementing integrated action plans that progress gender equality into community sport.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Indigo Shire's got a long way to go on this, but it's certainly good that we've got gender equality change rooms at Barmutha Park in Beechworth, at the Waganya Rec Reserve, and we've got funded policy at Rutherglen. So it'll be really good if we can get the other towns and villages on board and have change rooms that should be expected to be there.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to councillor Shepherd as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Yeah, just this statement that the policy establishes the expectation that gender equality is considered and prioritised in all current and future Indigo Shire Council's planning, policy, service delivery and practice as they relate to community sports infrastructure. They're pretty strong words.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll now move to item 13, infrastructure services, and item 13.1 is the Rutherglen Caravan Park proposed lease. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1.
Excuse me, please, Sophie. I'd like to move for a deferment of this matter.
Okay, so councillor Horn, you'd like to move that the matter be deferred. Are you stating a reason or a time frame for your deferral?
I'd like to have the discussion, please. Yeah.
Sorry, just need to be clear on what's required for a deferral motion, CEO. Do we need a specified time that the decision will return to a meeting?
Madam Mayor, I think the councillor's trying to move a motion of deferral, but there's no instruction as to what needs to be satisfied or when will it come back, what needs to be done in the meantime.
Okay, so councillor Horn, if you can complete your deferral motion with a time to return to or a reason that you would need the item deferred.
The reason I'd like to have the item deferred is there's a great deal of unease in the community, and I would like to defer it until the next council meeting.
So you would defer it until the June council meeting to
Yes.
get further information?
Yes.
Okay, so councillor Horn has moved that motion. Does it have a seconder? Seconded by councillor Gaffney. So let's be really clear on the motion and make sure that that's appropriate, that the motion is a deferral motion until the June council meeting to seek further information. CEO?
Mayor Price, I'm trying to enter the debate, but the motion doesn't provide any information that's seeking. Not sure what to do with it.
Councillor Gaffney?
One of the reasons that I have seconded this was that I had a conversation with the CEO at 6:25 PM tonight regarding this. I'd certainly like to move into confidential to see whether this can be verified because it may change the landscape.
Okay, so at this stage, councillor Horn, do you want to be any more specific than that? You're asking for a deferral for more information until the June council meeting. Is there anything that can be more specific that we can give direction to the CEO as to what information you're after?
No, just as councillor Gaffney has said, that there is other information that we can't explain in open council that I think we need to talk about.
Okay. Can I just be clear? We do not debate a deferral motion. We put a deferral motion, CEO. And if a deferral motion lapses, do we go back to the substantive recommendation or do we require a councillor to foreshadow that we return to the original recommendation? Your microphone's not on.
If the motion is lost, then we move on to the next agenda item. So it would be useful for anyone else, if they were so to choose, to foreshadow a different motion.
I would like to foreshadow that if that deferment fails, that we go back to the item as per 13.1, the proposed lease.
Okay, so at the moment we have a deferral motion moved by councillor Horn, seconded by councillor Gaffney, and councillor Shepherd has foreshadowed that should that motion be lost, we would return to the original motion, which is the recommendation in the agenda. So without any further discussion, I will put the deferral motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is lost. So we'll just get who those were. So again, those in favour, it's councillor Horn and councillor Gaffney, and those against is councillor Gold, Shepherd, Price, Tysell, Croucher. So councillor Shepherd, I'll now move to you with the motion. So you are moving the motion as it is in the agenda. I don't think I got to the end of that, so I might continue to read that recommendation. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes that no submissions were received by the advertised deadline in response to the public notice advising of the proposed Rutherglen Caravan and Tourist Park lease. 2, accepts the expression of interest and subsequent negotiations of lease terms and approves that a lease be put in place with HPM Australia Proprietary Limited, the trustee for Getaway Parks Group Unit Trust, for the operation of Rutherglen Caravan and Tourist Park at 72 Murray Street, Rutherglen, commencing on the 1st of July 2024 and for a period of 21 years, and with the following terms, with details provided in the confidential attachment. A, the annual rental amount payable will be based on a percentage of the caravan park's annual revenue determined by the competitive EOI process, including a minimum rent guarantee set at 70% of the predicted gross annual income. B, the lessee will be required to invest into developing the park in line with the adopted master plan. And C, council commits to funding its share of capital works to support the implementation of stage 1 of the master plan. 3, notes that a funding agreement between both parties to the lease detailing council's financial commitment to implementing stage 1 of the master plan will be developed and be an attachment to the final lease. And 4, delegates authority to the CEO to finalise the details and execute lease documents, including the funding agreement on its behalf. So Councillor Shepherd, you are the mover for that motion. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Gold. So moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so on the 13th of December 2022, we adopted the caravan park master plans for each of the parks, which included a 10-year aspirational plan and identified opportunities and options for the management, infrastructure, investment and economic tourism benefits for each of the parks. The Rutherglen Caravan Park lease is due to expire on the 30th of June. An expression of interest process to identify new lessee is being conducted by council officers as per the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action guidelines, and the EOI process sought to identify experienced and suitable operators with a vision for improving the park and investing capital funds to develop it in line with adopted master plan. A review panel comprising Director of Infrastructure Services, Director of Community and Economic Development, Manager Tourism and Manager Assets and Property evaluated submissions. Expressions of interest were evaluated on the criteria. They evaluated each of the submissions received and shortlisted those, and then the panel recommended that HPM Australia's submission was the best option and scored the highest when assessed against the evaluation criteria. Holiday Park Management, HPM, was established in 2009 and currently owns and manages 2 holiday parks, the Wilson's Prom Holiday Park and Longjetty Caravan Park, both in Gippsland, along with a luxurious glamping retreat in Northern Victoria. While HPMA is a relatively young entity, its directors all have substantial experience in owning, developing and managing holiday parks. So I recommend that we accept this tender.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I think it's worth noting that council is the land manager in this instance. The caravan parks are a significant community asset that council's best practice is to conduct a public process, particularly when we're talking about a lease for 21 years. That it's important that we do test the market, seek the best value for the community, because we are, after all, managing this land for the interests of the community, and the best option for delivery of the Master Plan 2022. That we would be very remiss if we went to the trouble of creating a master plan that reflected council's aspirations for the caravan park and the significant social and economic benefit that provided if we didn't concurrently seek to have a caravan park operator that would work with council constructively on that delivery. I do note that this process has been undergoing since November 2023, where the EOI went public. I think it's really important that we enable current and any potential future operators to have a definitive decision so that they can move forward with any negotiations that they need to make. I think it's also worth noting that there were, perceived potential conflicts of interest during this process, and that has been resolved, I believe, quite diligently through seeking both legal and external peer review of the process and the documents involved, and where needed, that people were excluded from the evaluation process to ensure that any internal conflicts of interest between, any potential assessor was removed from the process. And this was all done very early on and has been repeated throughout the process. I think it's important that we also note that the proposed lessee, HPM Australia, has got good experience and the expertise and a diversity of management that does set them up to be successful in the park's operations. And ultimately, we are responsible for ensuring that that's the case.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn?
We're told that this has been a very thorough process, and yet if you read in bullet point 2, section A, it says the annual rental amount payable will be based on a percentage of the caravan park's annual revenue determined by the competitive EOA expression process, including a minimum rent guarantee of 70% of the predicted gross annual income. I question that any business could be successful if they're giving 70% of their profit, their gross annual income rather, to the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Councillor Gaffney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Gold mentioned in passing about conflict of interest. I think it's a very, very serious matter. There's a lot of confidential documents that can't be brought out into the community to see, which is unfortunate. To get 4 declarations of conflict of interest over one contract just seems something that I've never seen before. The first conflict of interest, which is in the public document, is Council's Building and Property Officer declared a conflict of interest in relation to one of the companies. Council's Master Plan Consultant, Odin 360, also declared a general conflict. Odin 360 was engaged in separate pieces of work over the journey of the project. The company was originally engaged to develop the Caravan Park Master Plan and also produced an economic modelling report for the council prior to the adoption of the Master Plan in 2022. Odin 360 was engaged to develop an expression of interest process and draft lease for the operation of Caravan Park, or rather Glen Caravan Park. Declaration 3, Odin 360's lead consultant declared a general conflict of interest when expressions of interest were open, and he became aware of the potential of a company who had business dealings with Odin 360 to put in a submission. The next one is a conflict of interest by the people who this recommendation is obtains the lease for 21 years. The recommended operator, All SE HPM Australia Proprietary Limited, declared a potential conflict of interest in their submission. They declared that they had previously had some involvement as a sub-consultant with Odin 360. This included giving feedback on the potential cost of the master plan and conducting an audit of the park that was presented to council as part of the master plan process and informing some aspects of the lease documents. These are conflicts of interest in the public arena, and it makes you wonder why there's other documents are held in confidential and not forthcoming. I'd like to ask a couple of questions of the mover. Do you think that in this process that HPMA had an unfair advantage over others regarding the lease?
I was as concerned as anyone about the conflict of interests in this process and have delved quite deeply into this. And I would be feeling much worse if there were no declarations of conflict of interest in this space. I am pleased to see that we have a good process where conflict of interest is easy to raise and then able to be managed. I think we've managed the conflict of interest well, and I'm very confident with the advice received from Maddox and from Urban Enterprise that, that these processes have been, the conflicts have definitely been covered, and that there was no advantage to HPMA. I'm always bad with acronyms.
Holiday Parks Management
Thank you.
Australia.
I got it right.
You said that they've got two caravan parks. Have they only got two
As in the report.
in this report? There are 3 other caravan parks in Indigo Shire, which their lease expiration is certainly coming up. Would you imagine the council will use the same process as they have on this matter? with Rutherglen?
Yeah, I think we decided as a council that we would do it by expressions of interest, and yes, the process will be the same.
Well, I certainly hope we don't get the same number of conflicts of interest the next time. As I said earlier, I spoke to the CEO at 6:25, and it's not in this documentation, but I'm sure he wouldn't have raised it unless he had good intentions.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher?
Yes, I've listened very carefully all day today at what's been going on and so forth, and it certainly has been a very, very extensive process gone through. I also would like to endorse the very good reports that both Councillor Shepherd and Gold have made today, and I think that they've done a pretty good job in working at what I'm going to do anyway. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I would also like to say, I think there's a lot of people that are really looking at this decision to make sure that we have done our due diligence in considering it. And I think that we can absolutely reflect that back. I think that council staff brought us a sound process, and councillors had concerns with that process. The CEO and his staff immediately responded to that because they wanted councillors to have full confidence in being able to make this decision. And I'll read from the report to say, to ensure confidence in the management of the potential conflict of interest, legal advice was sought from Maddocks. The advice from Maddocks recognised that while HPMA were involved in the development of the master plan and proposed lease, the processes conducted by council in developing the master plans and EOI documentation were appropriate, as they accurately reflected council's intentions with respect to the park, and that HPMA were not materially advantaged. Consequently, they found no reason to not support council granting the lease to HPMA. There was also other advice from Maddocks that suggested that we could peer review the process. And again, the CEO engaged that work to be done, again, to provide more confidence to councillors to be able to make a decision tonight. I'd also just comment on the use of conflict of interest. I think that it's a scary term that needs unpacking. I think that, as Councillor Shepherd said, it is entirely appropriate to identify and explain conflicts of interest during a process, and I think that that's exactly what happened. And interestingly, from what Councillor Gaffney read from the agenda, he read out the parts that identified the conflict of interest, but below each of those conflict of interests was also a line which described the way in which those conflicts were then managed, to ensure that as the CEO could present us a really robust process. So yes, there were conflicts of interest that existed in this process, but they have been explained as to exactly how they've been managed. And I think that has absolutely been to our satisfaction. Again, I just want to really suggest to the community that we have absolutely pored over this agenda item and made sure that we've given thought to every component of it. And councillors should be in a position to be able to make a decision tonight. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Otherwise, I'll go back to the mover. I'll go back to you, councillor Shepherd, as the mover.
Great summing up, thank you. I also would just like to thank the previous Rutherglen Caravan Park lessees for the work that they've done over the years in establishing that caravan park and giving great service. And thank them for their time there. They didn't put in an application, and so they'll be moving on, but I really appreciate the time and work they've put into that space, and look forward to HPMA's opportunity to move that caravan park to another level. Thanks.
So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? The motion is carried. Again, I'll ask you to raise your hand and we'll record it for the vote. Councillor Gold, Shepherd, Price and Croucher have voted in favour. Those against is Councillor Horn, Tysell and Gaffney. The motion is carried. I'll now move to item 14, Executive Management, and item 14.1 is Council Plan and Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan 2021 to 2025, Year 4. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the Council Plan and Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan 2021-2025, Year 4, and 2 places both documents on public exhibition for 21 days from the 15th of May 2024 and invites submissions. Could I have somebody to move that motion, please? Moved Councillor Tysell, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge some of the achievements this council has racked up over the period of time, and some of the innovation of it and our proactiveness in and amongst our communities. We've moved and passed our reconciliation plan, our gender equity plan, the Chiltern Land Precinct Plan, EV charging stations, and our emissions reduction plan, which is all very proactive in local government. And there wouldn't be very many councils in Victoria that would have been anywhere near as proactive as we have as a council and as councillors, and we should be commended on those accomplishments.
Thank you, Councillor Tysell. Sorry, who was the seconder for that motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as
It was
seconder?
me. Yes, I agree. We've done a lot. And when I look at it all, I just think how exciting it was to be involved in many of these decisions and many of these processes. Like, how can we forget the Chiltern Community Hub? That was big. That was really big. And I know the Mayor and I were on that committee, and there it is now, the library and the community centre all up and running, and what an asset to the Chiltern community. And the place plans that we've done, that we've been involved in, and the meetings we've had with community. I mean, we can pat ourselves on the back for these amazing things we've done, but right beside us has been the community in coming along and being part of the projects, and often being steering committees or been part of the process, and also, of course, the staff who have implemented all of these great ideas and projects and grants that we've achieved. So, whoa, it's been big. I can't imagine the next 4 years being as big as this, but we'll see. So thank you for community and fellow councillors and staff for this great 4-year plan that we've nearly achieved.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tysell, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I also would like to thank the communities, the user groups, and the land managers of many of these facilities that have worked with us to achieve the goals that we have. And I'd like to say thank you to them as well.
Thank you, Councillor Tysell. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees. 1, the Indigo Community Access Committee. 2, the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee. Can I have somebody to move that motion, please? Moved Councillor Tysell, seconded Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tysell, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge the good work that our community members do again in volunteering for these committees, and the worthwhile submissions that these have to our councillors.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Councillor Crouch, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just as a member of the Access Committee, I think it's really great to be able to have these committee minutes displayed right throughout the Shire, throughout our communities.
Thank you, councillor Crouch. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Would you like to sum up, councillor Tyson? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I'll move to item 14.3, informal meetings of councillors' records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records, moved by councillor Gaffney, seconded by councillor Gold. Would you like to speak to the motion? No and no. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is contracts awarded under CEO delegation for April 2024. The item is for information and there is one contract listed. Item 15 is notices of motion, of which there are none. Item 16 is councillors' reports. Councillor Tyson, you'd like to make a councillor report to the meeting?
Yes, please. Chiltern's world renowned for its twitchers, bird watchers, if you like, for a simpler way. There are approximately only 500 swift parrots recorded alive in Australia at the present time. And over the last week, there have been 50 separate sightings in the Chiltern area, very, very close to the township and along most of our walking tracks. So I'd urge any twitchers that are out there that want to take one of these off of their app, that they should come to Chiltern and try and find them.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to make a report? Councillor Shepherd?
So I went out the other night and because I was alerted by a text message to go and look at the southern aurora that was amazingly being displayed across the sky. And at the same time, my brother-in-law from Melbourne said, "Can you see anything? Can you see anything?" I said, "Beautiful." He said, "I can't see a thing." And it did make me think about our dark skies policy and the fact that, you know, I said to him, "Get up here as fast as you can and you might be able to see it." And the importance of us thinking about keeping our skies dark around our area so we can see the sky.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to make a report to the council meeting? No. Item 16.1 is the mayor's diary. And I do want to note a couple of big things within that. I got to open the main stage at the Off-Grid Living Festival on the 6th of April, which was fantastic. And towards the end of the month, open the Beechworth Courthouse Kelly Trials exhibition. And what a credit to our Shire that exhibition is. The amount of work that has gone into it to present it in the way that it has been presented, which means that it has been so well received by all of the different parties who have a real interest in how that story is told. It's really reverent. It tells a great story. The space is incredible. The Beechworth Courthouse is absolutely an integral part of what you sit there and absorb. I've been lucky to have a look at it 3 times now. And each time I walk away thinking of something different. And we're lucky enough to take Helen Haynes through the exhibition and she was floored by it. I know that we've had quite a few people through it in the first few days of it opening, and I would again urge residents of Indigo Shire Council, this is your exhibition. This is an asset of yours as a ratepayer, and you can come and see it for free. So come and show us your rates notice or a driver's license, proof of address, and go and see a new asset to our Shire that is yours, and enjoy it and bring your family along and come and have a look. The last thing that I'd note is that the CEO and myself have met with the Minister for Roads and the Attorney General and Member for Northern Victoria, Jacqueline Symes, with her office, we requested both of those meetings to continue our discussion about the Rutherglen Main Street funding, to keep the pressure on the fact that that funding needs to remain in place. We thought that we would have a response about that with the state budget, and that has not really been the case. And we think that we are headed towards some sort of indication in July, and we will keep the community informed, and we will keep in contact with both of those ministers' office to make sure that they know that this money needs to stay in place for this project, and that is a priority of Indigo Shire Council. I now move to the decisions register, which is for information. And lastly, item 18 is general business. Councillor Tyson, you have an item of general business that you wish to raise?
I do. As most people would be aware, our solar farms are growing in and around our communities. There's currently one being constructed adjacent to Barnawatha. My concern with them is that there's little consultation with communities, and there is little consultation with our local governments, whether it be us, our neighbours in Alpine who are going through the same problems, and whether or not this is the best use of our agricultural land, given that some of our communities are in danger of becoming landlocked. And I was wondering whether or not we might be able to do something about this for our communities as far as advocacy goes, and how we might go about it.
If I can just comment on that, Councillor Tyson, it was raised at the last local government roundtable meeting with Helen Haynes, and she was discussing similarly what you're reflecting, that we have not struck the right balance has not been struck with engagement in of communities, of local governments, of surrounding landholders in terms of the impact of one of these solar farms on your property, on a neighbour's property, and even being able to really clearly define what the community benefit is, because quite often we hear of new football jumpers for football clubs or something like that. But Helen Haynes was really strong on the fact that we should be asking for much greater long-lasting benefit to the community. If our communities are best placed to have these solar farms in their backyards, then we want to know what the community benefit is and that it be really well defined. So the CEO can probably reflect on that. We can take that on as advocacy, but to note that that is absolutely coming up as part of our discussions in other meetings we're having as well. CEO, did you want to make any comment about that?
Thanks, Mayor Price. Look, just that we can easily add that to the advocacy plan, and we'll need to bring that up to a council meeting in the near future. But no doubt that the state has removed the power of councils to make comment on solar farms and brought it centrally to the state, and a lot of councils are feeling the same sense of loss of control.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for raising it, Councillor Tyson. Do any other councillors have any general business for the council meeting? If not, I will close the meeting at 7:48 p.m. and advise people that the next scheduled council meeting is Tuesday, the 25th of June.